Hello everybody, it is me, Pacific. This morning I wanted to talk about something due to a viewer's request on the subject of pedophiles and pedophilia. I don't even like to talk about this subject because it's disturbing. California, though, some lawmakers want to call pedophilia a sexual orientation. In other words, just like calling used cars pre-owned and calling homosexuals alternative lifestyles, we want to water it down and make it sound nice. Pedophilia is that which is exercised by an adult with a minor, a child, same sex, opposite sex, whatever. Let me say a couple things about this. Pedophilia to me is wrong. But there's few things that are wrong about all of this in general. Pedophilia is not just a sexual orientation. I believe that there are some people that are just truly perverts. An example would be a 40, 50-year-old man wanting to play with a little tiny boy or little girls. There was a video about older American men going to Thailand to mess around with 6, 7, 8-year-old girls. I cannot for the life of me make any sense of that whatsoever. I think it is disgusting. I think it is wrong. I am going to state that it is normal for any red-blooded male to be attracted to teen girls, especially the way they are dressed so provocatively today. And I would also stand up and denounce and put some heavy condemnation on parents that let their teen daughters walk out of the house dressed the way they're dressed. Case in point, there's a student that gets on my bus who's fairly well endowed, and her shirt comes just above the nipples and everything can be seen. I don't understand what parents are thinking when they allow their kids to do this. And then a man's caught looking at the hardware that young girl is flashing around, and everybody says, "What a pervert." Are you serious? A man is going to look. Just because that girl is 13, 14, 15, if she's showing it, people are going to look. Doesn't make it right. But if you don't want people to think that way, then maybe you ought to cover it up. That's just what I think ought to be common sense. But today it seems that common sense has gone out the window. To legitimize pedophilia behavior makes sense if you're going to legitimize homosexual behavior and gay marriage. As I told somebody this last week, if you allow one domino of morals to fall, then the other people that are doing immoral stuff are going to clamor for their rights as well. I don't know when Americans are going to wake up to that. To paraphrase the Pink Floyd song, I want to say, hey perverts, leave them kids alone. If our kids are not safe, if our kids are not safe from child molesters and men and women, and there are a growing number of women. There is somebody I know who's elderly at this point. She had a black, her family had a black, nanny, so to speak. That black nanny did things to her as a little girl that ought not be done. So there are women who do this as well. There are women who introduce their teenage daughters to lesbianism. There was the case of an Australian woman playing with her teenage daughter. They went to court, and the teenage daughter says, "I don't want my mother punished, I like it." Good job, Mom. Thank you for imprinting and wrecking another student. Let me say something very, very important. Sexual imprinting is what I call it. When you imprint something on a child, it stays with them. I dated a gal many, many, many years ago that had been raped and molested by her uncle. You would think that that would repel her away, and it did repel her away from him. But that single act made her desire sex so much because she felt that that was the only thing she was worth. There's sexual dysfunction on all levels. I have had things introduced to me, i.e., a grandpa and a father, the one who adopted me, leaving porn magazines around for us kids to find. I would tell all of you men, if you're looking at that stuff, don't have it in the house. Don't let your kids catch you looking at it. Because once people get a taste of that stuff, it's an addiction. I shared with you that there are people that had persuasions and introduced things to me. And those things caused problems. The problem is when you are looking for a cheap orgasm, you perverts, and you do something to a kid, you mess up that kid for life or for a long time, which in turn causes that child to make bad choices. I understand sexuality this much, that we all have a drive and a desire. For men that are looking at 6 and 7 and 8-year-old girls or boys or younger, you need to get some help. If you notice a teen girl, I think it's normal, but something in you has to say, okay, let's not be alone in a locked room with that gal while she's jumping around being cutesy in front of you. And many people get themselves in trouble on this one. Youth leaders, youth ministers, not cool. I remember being at I had driven a bus for a group, a church group out of Washington. We went for a week to southern Idaho, and I watched the youth pastor's wife having teenage girls sit on her lap while she had her arms around them, and I thought, that ain't right. A lot of things women get away with, and nobody questions it, and I would say, you know what, when it comes to teens or any children, we need to be appropriate at all times, touching them, holding them, having them sit on your lap, even if your intentions are not to be sexual, it doesn't look right. We are living in a very sexualized society, and people who are sexual love to touch, and they're looking and their antennas are up all the time for an opportunity to grab something illegitimately. I knew a guy who had been busted for pedophilia, but he was released from jail. He showed up at the church I worked at in Denver, Colorado many years ago, and it was interesting. I was married at the time, and my wife simply gave him a hug. We didn't know he was previously accused of pedophilia. He came to church. My then wife thought he seemed like a harmless man. And for the next week, as I came down to work at the church, he showed up, hung out, and he says, I really like the hug your wife gave me. And I said, yeah, she's a kind woman that way. But then he said it again, and then I said, hey, you know what? You need to stop. Then some teenage girls from a ministry type group came up and were out playing in the hose one day and washing cars and had their bathing suits on, and sure enough, there he is, jumping around and hanging around. And I finally went to the secretary of the church and said, somebody needs to do something about this guy, because then it had been made known to me that he had a history of pedophile behavior. The leadership came out, the secretary came out, and we all came out and said, it is time for you to go. What was interesting is he got very upset. I don't understand what I'm doing. Well, we know about your past, and it might not be a good idea for you to be hanging out with children. The guy was a freak. There's no doubt about it. Ran into him, maybe 2 years later. I didn't even remember who he was. I didn't recognize him, rather. A friend of mine had dropped me off at a bus stop to go home. This guy talks to me. He says, don't you remember me? And I said, no. He says, oh, yeah. And he says, how you doing? I said, good. I said, we've had a son. And he says, well, maybe I can come up and see your wife and son. And I was very quiet. I didn't say anything. He says, oh, you're not going to let me see you, huh? And I looked at him and I said, you know what? We don't let a lot of people see us. Don't take it personally. Because the guy was a big, strapping guy, I wasn't about to make an accusation at a bus stop where there weren't many people around to witness anything. I was uncomfortable, and it dawned on me this guy's a true pedophile with his antennas up looking for an opportunity. Constantly. Sex offenders must register, and that's good, but they move into any and all neighborhoods. Water's a good thing in Colorado. I love Colorado, but it's very arid here. Pedophile behavior is wrong, and for anybody to legitimize it and call it just simply a sexual orientation, I would encourage every American to stand up and say, foul ball, we're not doing that. All of us, if we're normal, have a sex drive. We need to keep it under control. If you've got feelings for little tiny kids, I would tell you to go get some serious counseling and help. That is not acceptable. To take advantage of impressionable, gullible, naive little children and be involved in that behavior, to me, you're a spook. I'm going to talk about a situation. When I was married to this woman, we ran a troubled respite home in Akron, Ohio. 2 kids for 3 days would stay with us. I won't get into all the particulars. We did that for 6 months, and the stuff that we encountered was so utterly disturbing. Plus, the neighborhood we lived in, on the back side of our neighborhood, there was Akron Metro Housing. There was bullet holes in the siding on our house. That did not happen when we were there. But there was just a series of things that said, I really don't want to deal with this stuff, both my then wife and myself. And we promptly went back to northern Minnesota and the small town we were living in and said, enough of that. However, it did open my eyes to how deep and wide the problem of children are. We had a boy that came in. He was living with his grandparents, and I remember his grandfather brought him over to drop him off. We had met with the mother. The mother seemed out of touch with reality. She seemed like a nice woman, but you could tell she was clearly living in the 50s. And she said, we just want him to come to this house so he can have a chance to be in another home and be with other adults and blah, 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 blah. I didn't think anything of it. Sometimes the reason these kids were in the respite program befuddled me beyond words. The kid was, what was he, 10, 11, maybe 12. I don't even remember now. But she had told us we don't let him watch Beavis and Butthead. We don't let him watch this. One night at the table, we're eating dinner, and he says something to me. Oh, there's show Beavis and Butthead. And I said, when did you watch that? And he says, oh, I've seen these shows. Well, then we had another kid there. This kid actually was a decent human being. Not sure why he was in the program. He was obedient, kind, respectful. We had no problem with him. My wife and I are in the living room watching TV. I overhear the one kid tell the other kid, do you masturbate? Do you like to masturbate? I'm like, oh, put on the brakes. I go into the bedroom. I said, hey, come here. We had a little talk, and I told him, I said, what's going on? And I did start asking some questions. I said, you said that you watch these shows. I said, when do you watch these shows? Oh, well, my grandpa lets me watch them. Viewers, let me tell you, as the story unfolded, this kid then confessed that this grandfather locks the door, shuts the room, and after all came tumbling out, the grandmother doesn't know what's going on in there, or maybe she does and didn't want to face it. But the long and short of it is the kid confessed that Grandpa was letting him watch all kinds of shows that he shouldn't be watching because Grandpa was undressing him and playing with his privates. I told the kid, you have told me this, I have to take this to the authorities. His response to me was, no, I don't want my grandpa in trouble. And I said, are you lying about this? He says, no. I said, why are you trying to protect him? And his comment to me scared me, and when I repeated it to my then wife, it sent chills down both of our spines. Because I like it, it feels good. We did turn it into the authorities. We called our boss, Social services came over. We had a lady come out. Lady, I was out doing something. The lady came into the house, asked us to leave. We stood outside. The lady come out and said, Pacific, I need you to talk to this boy. He will not confess what happened. And I said, okay. I walked in the house. There was a crumpled juice box on the floor and graham cracker bits on the floor. I said, hey, dude, what's going on? I don't like this woman. I want her to stop. I said, she's asking you a question and you need to answer it. And he says, Pacific, everything I told you was true, but I don't want to get my grandpa in trouble. And I said, you have to tell her what you told me. He wouldn't tell her. And he started acting out on all levels. And after all was said and done, she came to us. She goes, I know this stuff is true, but unless we get a confession from him and have some sort of proof, we cannot do anything. What we're going to do is hold him for 3 days. We're going to put him in a high-risk home. There was a black couple running the high-risk home. The father and the wife, the husband and wife came to me, and they talked to me that ran that home. And they both said, we were told everything that happened, what he told you. This kid came to me, this is the man, and says, will you tuck me in? I want you to touch me. And I said, absolutely not. He says, there clearly something has been done to this child. The case fell through the gaps because he wouldn't come out and confess it, and he went back to his pedophile grandpa. There was more to this story, viewers, but the kid was molested at all levels, became very hungry for it because it felt good, and his grandpa in turn would let him watch nude shows with women bouncing around with their boobs showing and watch Beavis and Butthead. And this is the way pedophiles operate. I'll do this if you do that. Pedophiles are scary people. They manipulate little kids' feelings. They take advantage of them. They're wolves going after sheep. Anybody that legitimizes pedophilia behavior, something needs to be done. California state senators and people in the state of California were actively talking about removing language that forbids pedophiles, and they wanted to call it a sexual orientation. I have said this before, if we allow homosexual behavior to go on, legitimize gay marriage, pedophiles will be scrambling to be allowed to do their pernicious behavior as well. If our kids are not safe, nobody's safe. If we cannot stand up and tell society we're not going to tolerate this, if people are afraid to have a backbone, the dominoes will continue to fall and chaos will ensue. If I heard that a man tried to introduce my son to any of this behavior, I would have a real hard time maintaining a lawful composure. I'm not going to say what I would do to a man like that if I caught a man doing that, but let's just say this. It wouldn't be favorable to the perp. Our kids need to be safe. Parents need to tell their teenage daughters how to dress appropriately. Wives, you need to be checking on your husbands. When you're locked in a room alone with somebody, wives, you need to start questioning, why is the door locked? You need to watch your husbands. Husbands, you need to watch your wives. I don't mean run around being suspicious, but we need to hold each other accountable. I understand that we all have sin flowing through us, but some of this stuff needs to be checked. This is Pacific's thoughts on the whole matter. Of course, California has to be the trendsetter in the weird, bizarre, and freaky and pushing the moral envelope. I surely hope that this gets shot down. But, of course, the whole argument for gay marriage is in the Supreme Court because of none other than California. I grew up in California. I will tell you viewers that right from the outset. California was a great state, had the beach, had the amusement parks, Disneyland, Knott's Berry Farm, Six Flags Magic Mountain. It had skiing, it had everything. I am amazed at how a place can become synonymous with immoral, decadent behavior. Are we shocked? Look at Hollywood. Hollywood originated there, and is Hollywood really doing any good for society? I don't think so. But you're not going to topple Hollywood anytime soon because Americans love violence, lust, profanity, and all manner of evil. They watch it, they pay for it, they continue to be. Hollywood is consumer driven. I would encourage Americans to stop paying for Hollywood and Hollywood would go away. But no, American men and women are fascinated with vanity and gossip and immoral behavior. And this is why more and more we're seeing stuff like, let's call pedophile behavior a sexual orientation. Sad. This is Pacific, signing off. Bye bye.